meeting. Okay, there she is, Alexis, or whoever it is. Okay, so
Jane? Monitor behind you. If you wanna.
No,
click.
I did hear that, yes, like,
okay, so I'm calling the meeting to order. It's 6:01. So this is a hearing of the appeal by Mr. Fernandez of the lister's property valuation of the property located at 92 Richardson Road, Vershire, and the parcel number is 0604000. Wait a minute, see who this is? Who is this?
fine.
Okay, good. Okay, you made it. Okay, so we'll first identify the Board of Civil Authority. So would we all say our names?
I'm Bonnie Stroud.
Reva Seabold, Margaret Darrow.
Amy Record.
Nicole White Fogarty.
Burnstone.
Okay,
Jean
and
Craft.
Jean Craft. Now we are going to swear the Board of Civil Authority in. So you can either swear or affirm. Okay, so is there anybody who would rather affirm rather than swear?
I'd rather affirm.
You'd
I don't
rather.
care, it doesn't matter.
You're gonna be a pest, aren't you? Okay, so I don't know, how do I swear me in? I guess I just. So do you solemnly swear that you will well and truly hear and determine all matters at issue between taxpayers and listers submitted for your decision? So help you God.
Okay.
I do.
And can we, just for the record, have people say their name and
Say I do.
say I do?
Okay.
Bonnie Stroud, I do.
Reva Seabold, I do. Margaret Darrow, I do.
Amy Record, I do.
Nicole White Fogarty, I do.
Burnstone, yeah, I do. Jean Craft, I do.
Okay. Now we will identify the health. So say your name,
Sean Fernandez.
John Fernandez.
Manuel Sean Fernandez.
You have you obviously don't have any witnesses with you, so we don't have to do, okay, so we need to swear you. Okay, so here's your oath. Under the pains and penalties of perjury, do you solemnly swear that the evidence you will give in the cause under consideration shall be the whole truth and nothing but the truth?
I do.
All right, now, listers, identify yourselves.
Jamie Blondin.
Lucas Daniels,
Deborah Kingsbury.
and I'm Jacob Stoddard from Nimmer.
And you will swear the same oath. So, under the pains and penalties of perjury, do you solemnly swear that the evidence you give in the cause under consideration shall be the whole truth and nothing but the truth?
Jamie Blondin, I do.
Lucas Daniels, I do.
Deborah Kingsbury, I do.
Jacob Stoddard, I do.
Okay. So. Okay.
Vern is a member of the fire department, so if anything goes awry, we're glad he's here. See what happens here in this building.
Okay, so, Mr. Fernandez, did you receive a copy of the rules of procedure?
I did.
You did, okay. Listers, did you all receive a copy? Okay.
Yes.
Okay, now, Board of Civil Authority, are there any conflicts of interest? For example, have any of you appealed your property evaluation? Are you related to either party, either Mr. Fernandez or any of the listers that would disqualify you from serving?
Answer that out now.
No, it's okay. We've got you all shaking your heads. Okay. Have any of you had any ex parte discussions of this case? Okay. Okay. Now, listers. So you're the first up here to describe the property and its valuation?
If you want me to, I can.
Sure, you can start.
So the subject property is a 2,800 square foot, single family dwelling being graded as an average good quality in average condition. The year of the structure was originally constructed in 1810. Therefore, the effective age of 70 has been applied due to upgrades to function as a home in today's standards. For example, plumbing, electrical, routine maintenance to keep things up to operating. The building is classified for value purposes as single family building type. We have 127.6 acres being described as versatile hardwoods and sugarbush, and that the fields could be organically certified as no chemicals have ever been used and currently produce hay each year. However, the uses are limitless. The property was listed on the
Do you want qualifications? Because the property is not being used for hay each year.
We don't have, you'll get your,
Okay.
so,
The property was listed on the MLS in May of 2023 for $995,000 and sold a month later to Fernandez in June of 2023 for $819,000.
okay, so, now it's up to you to make your case, Mr. Fernandez.
Okay. First, just a clarification, it was stated that the property is used for hay each year, and that's not correct. We actually wanted to use it for hay. Last year after the floods, we were offering it, we didn't want to make any money. Because we heard people could use the hay, and we were turned down. They said it's bad hay. People didn't want it. So, and we want to hay it this year, and we can't find anyone to do it. So, for what that's worth, just so you're aware of that. I have 3 copies. I apologize. I didn't realize there were so many of you.
No,
I
3
just
is right, and you
followed.
give them to,
Oh, you want all
to
the-
G.
I'm going to give them one at a time. I have one. Okay, thanks. So the first one is just the letter that was sent to me.
Don't you have
And
to go
I'm gonna
put
give you the
numbers
extra.
on them?
Yeah, I'm going to.
The first one was a letter that was sent to me, and I highlighted the point that I was pleased to see is stated here. And that's that the board will be looking at issues of comparability, equity, fairness, and marketability, because that's exactly what I'm going to be presenting, and what I'm asking for is fairness and comparability to the rest of the town. The value that you're going to see ties into close to what we paid for the property. My fundamental question is, with the reappraisal that was done, was the intent to get the entire town up to market value? Because if it was, my position is that did not occur. They have taken any recent sales and taken them up to market value, but the other homes have not been brought up to market value. And I'm going to demonstrate that when you're going to see the disparity between my property and values on my property versus everyone else. Also, one of the challenges in Vershire is there aren't a lot of sales.
Mhm.
So I went on to Zillow literally today. There isn't a single home for sale right now in Vershire. So I couldn't do a comparison on that, but I did go back and look at recent sales. Of the recent sales, there were, I believe, 7. 6 of them are at 90% appraised value to purchase price or higher. 1 was not. I don't know why that one got off easy. They're at 69%. So I don't know if people missed the sale or what happened, but there was one that wasn't in there. Everyone else that was sold is in the last 3 years is up at least at 90% or higher on their valuations. So that's, again, some of the fundamental stuff I'll be looking at. Some empirical evidence, this may not carry much weight, but I've spoken to some residents of Vershire, and they have told me point blank, they're like, I can sell my house for a lot more than the new appraised value. And I said, that doesn't surprise me. That's consistent with what I believe has occurred. And I think that's consistent when my house, when we bought this property, you had a statement in number 5 on your letter that went out with the reappraisal stating that recent sales were generally about 50% to their purchase price, the appraisal to the purchase price. And that, I think is consistent with what we're seeing. And my guess is that has not dramatically changed. I also want to make sure you all know, I'm not here to complain for the sake of complaining. I currently live in Stowe. I don't know if you're familiar, Stowe's gone through the same process. My taxes or my property appraisal there went up 132%. I'm not arguing it because I looked at my neighbors and they all went up from 119 to 137%. I'm on the slightly high end of it, but it's within reason. Stowe had a headline right in the Stowe Reporter about property values more than doubled, for the entire town. That's probably what should have occurred in Vershire if you really wanted to take them to market value. Stowe, the values may be higher than Vershire, but I think in general in Vermont, all values have gone up. And I don't think that has been demonstrated. And you're going to see the percentage increases that are going to demonstrate that there has not been a dramatic increase in Vershire, at least, versus, I can see your eyes going, but I'm going to say,
looked at mine.
well, wait till you see my numbers. And I'm comparing it also to Stowe, where the entire town more than doubled. So that's the first slide. I'm going to go to the second. So this one is demonstrating prior to the reappraisal, our property was, I could be off by 1 or 2 on this because I had to do it manually, but we were 64th in Vershire, total value. We were 64th. When this appraisal was done, we're now 7th in Vershire. And my property has had 0 improvements, no changes, nothing is done. If anything, the house is just degraded further. And so, and of those 7, 1 is Washington Electric, 1 is a religious nonprofit, and 1 is land only. So as we're the 4th best house and property in all of Vershire, I don't believe that. I've seen the house, so I gotta believe it's a lot, there are better properties. So here's the next slide. You're gonna see I did analysis, I did work. This was not shooting from the seat of my pants.
You can, but let's wait.
So I then went, my property is 127 acres. So I said, for comparability, let me look at all of the 100+ acre properties in Vershire that have a dwelling on it. So I ignored land only. That's what's in front of you now. What you're going to see here is what the percent change was. And as NIMRIC had requested, because they thought I shouldn't look at a percent change, I should look at dollar change. I disagree with them. I think percent change is a better way to look at it, but I did both.
I'm sorry, I just want to pause for 1 moment. Jean, the computer behind you has frozen or kicked out of Zoom. I don't know if that affects our recording. Okay, thank you. Sorry about that.
No, no
It
worries.
doesn't show up on mine, so
So what you're going to see is my property's value appraisal increased 159%. The average for every other property that had 100+ acres and a dwelling, 38%. 159, 38. The highest in the group from that group was 86%. 86, 159. So I'm basically double any 100 acre property with a dwelling in it. And my property, again, I'm going to reiterate, had 0 improvements, 0 changes. Again, to me, this is fundamental evidence that yes, they've taken our appraised value up to market value. They haven't taken the rest of the town up to market value. Or else they would be much higher percentage. I have to believe someone on here made improvements to their places, maybe added structures, and yet ours increases more than double, almost more than 4 times the average, and more than double the next highest. So again, you can see it's a long list of properties, so significant number there. So then I took that same data, because one of the things I also should probably state up front for your benefit, I'm not discussing the house at all. This is all about land value. So next, I took that same group and I took it down to what is their value per acre in the appraised values. So again, what you're going to see, the average for all of those 100+ properties was $1,341 an acre. The highest in that group was $2,578. Then you have the Fernandez property, where I didn't realize there may be oil or gold. I haven't found it yet, but I guess it must be there because our value per acre, $4,459 an acre. $4,459 versus an average of $1,341. So 4 times the value is the acres on my land. And we're going to get into ratings, and I think you're going to clearly see where a mistake was made that drove, I'm assuming drove that super high valuation. And the next highest was 2,578. So we're almost double the next highest. This one is more a question that I've never been able to get answered, and I'd like to get answered. And that is, can someone give me the criteria for land ratings? What makes a 2.5? What makes a 2.0? What makes a 1.8? What makes a 1.5, 1.25, 1, 0.8, 0.6? Because that's a fundamental premise to this. And you're going to see, I'm going to argue dramatically that how they have rated my land, I apologize for being so blunt, but it's ridiculous. And I think you're going to say the same when you see the numbers I'm going to go through. When I looked, so I'm going to give you a current use. We're part of the current use program. So I'm going to provide the slide because I think it will help with a number of the discussion points and tie into where I think the ratings are wrong. And I guess to jump ahead, just so you all know when the ratings, they have rated my entire 127.6 acres, the entire thing at 2.5. The highest rating, they've put the entire property. And I'm going to give you analysis. So when you look at the current use, I don't know if you're familiar with where my property is, but it's on 113. So what I did, again, for comparability, is I did analysis. I looked at all 111 properties in Vershire that have a 113 address. Of those, and that total, 2,945.5 acres. Again, 2,945.5 acres. How many acres do you think were rated 2.5? Must be a lot, right? 2 acres. 2 acres was rated a 2.5. My magical property, all 127.6 acres are rated 2.5. 2 acres are rated 2.5. The next highest was rated a 1.8. How many acres? 2 acres. 2 acres rated 2.5. 2 acres rated 1.8. So let's go down to 1.5, because there must be a lot coming soon. 4 properties where just their house site, 2 acres, was rated 1.5. So out of 2,945.5 acres, 12 acres were rated 1.5 or higher. Then you hit the Fernandez property where 127.6 acres were rated 2.5. Over 82% of the 2,945.5 acres are rated 1 or below. Over 82% rated below. My magical property, 100% rated at 2.5 versus 2 acres at 2.5. So now I'm going to give you a slide of the wetlands. Since, you know, they're valuing the land and the property, I guess wetlands must be a good thing to have. I don't think so. I have wetlands and I can't build. This is a Vermont wetland slide, and it shows that there are wetlands on the property. It's a shaded area that you're going to see. And if you looked at the current use, I would say it equates to quadrant 4 on the current use comparability. So I'm not saying the entire property is wetlands, but quadrant 4 has the wetlands in it. And what's the significance of wetlands? I don't know if you all know, I learned the hard way. You can't do anything with wetlands. Because I wanted to take electric line if we're going to possibly build on the property, which we may or may not do now. But we learned we have wetlands and it was like, we're stuck, can't go that way. So again, I would argue that's not a plus. That doesn't make that land a 2.5. If anything, it makes it less than a 1. So then I would ask people to go back to the current use and look at this. Most of this property is wooded. How is that a 2.5? I'm waiting for the explanation because, oh, also you all should know, when I did the grievance hearing last time, I was told that if you got denied, you would get an explanation as to why. I didn't get any explanation. All I got was a letter that said denied. That was frustrating because, and that's why I'm here today, because no one's explained anything. Now, maybe it's because they can't explain it because this is so obvious that, you know, it just doesn't stand up. But again, I would ask folks to look at the current use, look at the amount of wooded property, look at how everyone else on Route 113 has been treated, and have them explain how this property miraculously warrants the highest rating on every acre of the property. The other thing that you all may know if you know the property is I border the town transfer station, or as we call it in Stowe, the town dump. I doubt that rate's a 2.5. I don't think people would think that's the most preferable place to be. Also being close to 113, I think is probably a negative, which is why there weren't high ratings on any of the other properties on 113. But again, what do I know? So those are a couple things there that I would mention. This next slide I'm giving is my neighbors chart. And it's only, so I'm going to combine slides. If you look at the slide here with the wetlands, you can see my neighbor's property goes perfectly along the border here. Well, the slide that you're going to get now is going to show that my neighbor's property is rated 1.0. Somehow, and I can't wait for someone to explain it. Somehow, when you stand on my neighbor's property, it's 1.0 in the woods. Then you step over the property and you step into my woods, and now it's 2.5. And not only if you look at where that border is, you may be stepping into wetlands. when you come over into my property. But again, mine is 2.5. Doesn't make sense. How do you go from 2.5, and all you did was cross an imaginary boundary line? Don't get it, but that's why I shared that information. So now the next slide, what I did now to really try and drill down and make it as comparable as possible. And this one, I have to say, really showed consistency that's been done by the town outside of my property. But this one, to me, made a ton of sense. And I'm going to share why. So what I did was looked at all of the properties on Route 113 that had 100+ acres for comparability. Try to keep it consistent. And looked at what is their cost per acre. And one of the things that the folks over there were very good about sharing with me is the fact that you have diminishing values. So as a property gets larger, it gets a lower value per acre or per square foot, whatever the case might be. In this case, per acre. Well, as you're going to see on the slide, it's incredibly consistent. You know, so you have the first building or first property is 480 acres. Cost per acre, 1,143. Next one, 205 acres, cost goes up a little, 1,224. The next one is an anomaly, I think, because it has a cell tower. I left it in here because I don't try to cherry pick. I give you all of the data. And that's how I presented all of this. It's not me picking out one example here that supports my argument. I give you it all. So the cell tower throws it off because it goes to 1,584 an acre. But then the next dwelling, 144 acres, 1,463 acres, and so forth. It keeps going up on the 6 properties that are listed here, to the highest being at 108 acres is a value of $2,073 per acre. Here's where the confusion comes in for lowly me. My 127.6 acres would fit between number 4 and number 5. Number 4 is 1,463 per acre. Number 5, which is at 116 acres, is 1,623 acres. My cost per acre, 4,459. Right in between, everyone else goes very symmetrical in that if your property gets smaller, the cost goes up. Till you hit my property in the middle, where what it should be, as I've calculated, it should be $1,559 if you follow this math along here. Instead, I'm almost $3,000 more. Again, just doesn't seem to make any sense to me.
Chair, I want to state that we're 25 minutes into our meeting.
You just tell me I'm talking too much.
Yeah, how much more do you have to go?
I only have 2 more slides.
Okay.
And if I've gotten an explanation from the last time, I might not have to rehash all this. So the next slide is just specifically, I wanted to talk about the excluded land that's on the current use chart. So again, on there, I'm trying to understand, one, I don't think it should be rated 2.5. That land is 113, one part of it is a median strip, 1.62 acres that goes between Richardson Road and 113. You can't do anything with that. Yet this is getting the highest rating possible. Then the property below is 7.73 acres, which is below Route 113. One, it's very close to 113. Two, I don't know why it got the rating it did, because one, it's a downslope, you get water runoff, you have overgrowth of bushes and stuff on the property. You can see it when you drive by it. So again, I didn't understand that. So to me, I think that should be closer to maybe $1,000 an acre. Instead, it's valued currently at $4,300 an acre. A different valuation on that, it seemed, than the total average, because some of it gets thrown off because the house site has an $87,500 charge for 2 acres, so 40,000+ an acre there. And that's because that's rated at 2.5. Again, don't know what the criteria is for a 2.5 versus all of the other areas. And fundamentally, I need that to be able to really know, am I being treated fairly or not? Well, I don't need it completely. I know I'm not being treated fairly when they rate 127.6 acres, 2.5, and then there's 2,950 acres, and
Okay.
only 2 acres.
We have that point.
All right, I'm sorry.
That's okay. Just,
It's just frustrating, so I keep reiterating. All right, finally, the last slide. I assume you want to know kind of, well, what should it be valued at, in my opinion? So what I've given is kind of 4 options. The first one, I took the average acreage cost of the 100+ acre properties from the early slide that I gave you. That was $1,341 an acre. If you did that, the estimated land value would be $171,000. If another one was then take the mean cost instead of the average. Averages can lie. So I took the mean. If you're familiar with mean, all that means is I'm taking the middle value, which was higher. That was $1,550 an acre. The third one, which is the one I think is the most defensible and most accurate, is the one where I did the Route 113 100-acre properties, and you saw where we fit in the middle and calculated at $1,559 an acre. That breaks the estimated land value to basically $199,000, or call it $200,000. Another option, which, you know, I don't care, is take the average increase for all of the 100-acre properties, the 38.1% increase. If you want to use that, because we're not trying to get an unfair advantage. We just don't want to be unfairly punished. And this seems like, for whatever reason, you know, it wasn't a great welcome to Vershire. And the fact that I've had to present this 3 times, I was dumbfounded that the last time was denied, because to me, this is so blatantly obvious, but hopefully you agree. But anyway, if you did the 38.1% average, that takes the estimated land value to $217,000. Currently, the land value, I think, is over $500,000. So you can see I'm asking for a dramatic reduction, but I think it's for good reason. Thank you for your time. Appreciate it.
so, let's see. So listers can respond.
Delighted to respond, and I will.
So I'm not sure, you could also, there's a place for listers making their case.
Right, so this is just responding to him.
Right,
Yes.
okay. Just, yeah, so responding.
I'll start off by just reading a section that was in the reappraisal facts on the reappraisal that went out to every person in town. It's number 4. How come my property value went up or down more than other people I know? The purpose of a reappraisal is not only to update the values to current market values, but to also equalize values across the town. Okay. Still others may have been incorrectly assessed during the last reappraisal, which last time this town was reappraised was 2005. And that's why we hired an outside appraisal firm to come in and do everybody across the board. This even notes that there could be incorrect quality grades and incorrect land values. Therefore, comparing percentage changes in value across properties is not a measure of equity because of changes in properties and changes in the base due to actual sales. The reappraisal agreement that we have with NEMRIC, part of their job, land valuation. NEMRIC will establish a land schedule based on recent sales in the Vershire area. Grade adjustments for land will be developed based on sales. And Jacob has done a tremendous amount of research, as the entire team did, coming up with a new land schedule for town. The other thing is that obviously we have numerous sales. Mr. Fernandez's property being one of them, whether it was him or if it remained with the previous owner. It would have gotten the same treatment, the same review, the same assessed value.
Okay, so,
Can I make a
um,
few points real quick?
For
Yes.
clarification, will I get another chance?
You'll get to
Oh, yes.
respond, you'll get to
Uh-huh,
respond to our stuff.
Yep.
My few quick points are, and you'll see them in some of the stuff that we are presenting. I have at least 5 pending sales, under contract sales in Vershire right now of different properties. The,
How can that be? There's nothing listed.
they're already pending.
He has it. He has the information to give you, which we will provide as,
Number, he mentioned in the FAQs, the 50%. That 50% mentioned in the FAQs is saying that the properties in town prior to a reassessment were being valued at 50% what the market. Not that we value properties at 50% during the reappraisal. Some of the criteria for land grades can be explained very quickly, or you have to literally take a course through the state in order to figure out how to grade the property. The quick and dirty of it would be many of the things that I mentioned in the opening statements of the fields, the woods, the hardwoods, the higher qualities spoken in the real estate listing spoke to the grade and the quality grade of that property. Why the grievance was denied, yes, I get the little bit of information on the thing is probably not a whole letter that we could send. But that's just how it's done everywhere throughout the state, and that's the form that gets sent out. My quick answer,
Why did you tell me I would get an explanation?
there's literally 3 lines that you get like 10 words in, that it's not much, and I don't remember what we put in there. A quick answer as to why it was denied is that we just did not feel there was, we made a change during the informational hearings about the house. But we didn't feel that there was any changes to be made after another conversation with them. And then in his documents, he put up here for the exhibit number 9, looking at cost per acre. You can look at cost per acre, and our company, and we've provided the town with a breakdown of the cost per acre on our land schedule that our senior assessor created. Comparing the cost per acre as he did, you also have to take into consideration that quality grade. You can't compare those per acre costs without also looking at the quality grade on that property. And those are the few notes that I have, so I think that makes my point.
can I make one more
yes.
point? Numerous times he's using comparisons with Route 113. He's not on Route 113. He's off Richardson Road, which is a private road.
Please look at the
Access.
chart of the
And I can also,
13 borders, my
Can I
God.
please request that he gives us the same respect
Yes.
that we gave him?
I apologize.
and I would also, I can afterwards, when I give you what we've prepared, I can also address the current use discrepancies that he pointed out and how that is handled and what the bottom line is on what the grant list amount will be for his total taxation and valuation purposes. So I do have that we can review.
Okay.
Choose to as well. Happy to address that issue. You want to go into your?
I
submissions?
think they get a chance to ask questions if they want to, and
So I need to point out that we are coming close to 45 minutes, so we are going to need to extend the meeting. I guess we'll wait till we get there, and then,
We have about 10 minutes and then we're there.
yeah, yeah. So Board of Civil Authority, do you have questions for Mr. Fernandez?
I have a question about the process. That was a lot of information. I wouldn't even know where to start asking
Well,
a question.
We will have the option, we'll have the possibility of looking at it all.
But I don't, it's okay at,
So you can ask questions now, and if you have questions when we reconvene.
When we reconvene.
After the site visit, we'll do that within a period of time. And you'll have all the information. You'll be copies of all the information, all the exhibits to take and study at your leisure.
and with the, so we can hear what you said with them.
You can, this should be posted, the audio will be posted, on the website. There'll be a link to take you to it, so you could listen to it again and with the information in front of you.
So we just verify, we won't be able to ask any of them the questions we have. Because,
Presumably they will come back to the reconvened hearing,
okay,
right? And then you'll have your questions at that point to ask. And then when we adjourn that meeting to go into deliberative session, then we would then talk as a board about what answers we got from our questions during the meeting.
and if some of our questions are more general, like not totally understanding of everything they do, we can't ask them anything between now and then in a more general sense.
Yeah, not outside of a hearing. There will be an ex parte communication, would not want to ask it outside.
Even if it's in general. Yeah, okay, just clarity.
If it's to do with this case, then you wouldn't ask. You have to ask it in the hearing.
Okay, so board, do we have an agreement? Do we, to extend, shall we say 15 minutes?
So you want to make a
Until-
motion to extend? the
So I
meeting?
move that we extend the meeting. Well, maybe we better give ourselves until
I'd say at least, I'll give ourselves a half hour.
Right,
But we still have to
until-
get through.
7:15. I so move. Would someone like to second?
I'll second.
Amy seconds.
You moved, she said, Bonnie.
Oh,
I got her.
Amy
Amy and I
seconded.
both seconded,
Okay,
whichever one you want.
Okay, all in favor?
Aye. Aye.
Any opposed? Okay, so we've extended until 7:15. Okay. So any other questions for Mr. Fernandez? Not at this time? Okay.
I have one question.
Okay,
Just. You were comparing 100+ acres parcels, trying to figure out the cost per acre. And I know the listers said, did address that if you were, the land grades would affect cost. But I'm wondering, did some of them had building sites, some of them not, or house sites? Do you take those values out so that it was
These all had,
just
these
land?
all had 12.
Did you take the dwelling off and just look at the?
I looked at the land value on your tax forms only, so I didn't include the building, site improvements, outbuildings, none of that was included. All I did was land value divided by acreage, and that gave me a cost per acre.
Okay, the separate, I'll say on a cost sheet, the separate land versus the separate thing that you build.
Yeah.
The outbuilding. Because then you're really just looking at acre.
That's, I was doing cost per acre.
Okay,
So you do the land value.
Yeah.
On the top of the form divided by the number of acres, and that gives you a cost per acre. I don't include dwelling, no, I don't include dwelling, don't include site improvement, don't include outbuildings.
that was,
So I just did land value.
that was my point. Thank
Yeah, no. I assume that's the right way.
you. That makes sense.
I chime in about that just a little bit, so there's a little information on how to do that. Or do you not want me to?
well, it's now the lister's chance to explain their evaluation and the evidence that supports it.
So yeah, you start, and I'll-
All right, let me give these two. You need 2 copies. Yes. One thing, that's right.
Go back and mark all three. Oh, that's mark yours too. These are our group exhibits.
There, one of included in the package is the property transfer tax return, just verifying the sales price that was conveyed. And again, that speaks volumes to what we said previously, that it's due to actual sales is how the reappraisal is done. And that's why we had an outside firm. And the grade adjustments for the land were developed based on the sales. So that's top priority to one here, as well as.
I'm sorry, you do. This one.
I also want to point out in the marketing of the property, it does refer to, there's a new 4-bedroom septic design is being installed and soil test results will be available for potential additional house site on the property. Mr. Fernandez came into the information session and the grievance session. He expressed repeatedly that he bought the property for the land, not really for the structure, but for the potential use and the lovely description of the property. It is a lovely, lovely 127 very versatile acre property. So that when he came into the information session, he received a letter. They reduced the quality on the dwelling itself from a 4.0 to 3.5. They changed the condition down to average. So when he first came in for the information session, the value was $794,200. He got a letter within the next week saying the new value, reflecting those changes after that information session, we're down to $753,700. He then came back for a grievance, and he was denied because the land value was reflected to be reflective of what the purchase price and the sales statistics had shown across town with recent values, including his. As for the current use, when you got the current use, that actually, the acreage for the 2-acre house site is $87,500. That's the 2 acres that stay out, and then the other 10.2 acres, I believe, I have to get back, that we did do at a much lower grade. We did not do it at the 2.5. So his excluded land is at 131.8 because we did reflect what was that side of the road is dropped down. It is not as pretty as the rest. However, when you do bulk land, you have to do it at 1 grade because of the acreage, and it reduces it down to more and more acreage. So the grand list taxable amount that he will be receiving is $344,800, which is based on $753,700. So after his exemption, as I said, that grand list total is $344,800. And I think Jacob can chime in because he's got comparable sales from things that are sold as well as things that are pending. Yes, absolutely. So he's got all of that compiled for you for sales in Vershire area sales as well as pending. Or we can't verify what they're selling for. We can show you what they're on the market and the contract and the areas between what the assessments are and what they're being marketed.
So like there's 4 exhibits here. 1, 5, the rest, 3 copies. There's 4 exhibits, 3 copies of it.
I can
I'll
chime
make
in.
sure you're recorded.
Okay. We'll chime in one more thing on current use of wetlands. Wetlands are considered very valuable because they enhance the property and they give it more privacy as well. But that all qualifies to be in the current use program, which gives that reduction, as I said. So he's given a reduction of, the exemption reduction was $408,900 for his 115.3 acres in the current use program. think about it, you take it from there.
So yes, it is a unique property in Vershire in the sense that it's probably one of the only sales that has a lot of land with a dwelling. That being said, when we run comparables, we can use properties and make adjustments to compensate for differences. In the first packet of comparables, you'll see, I used what we used as valid sales in the town. There's 4 different comparable properties. The first one is gonna be a property that we're only really looking at the house, the 1900s house. It's comparable to his house, the dwelling.
If it saves time, we're not even questioning that. So
I'm just explaining my whole story.
I'm just trying to save time.
Yes. And then there's an adjustment made for the difference. The next property is gonna be the versus of that. It's lots of land, but the house doesn't necessarily. And then the other 2 are a combination of both, and all of the adjustments that down at the bottom of the paper, you see a mean comp value and a rounded value. And that is an average of the adjusted sales prices for all of the comparables, showing what his sale price would be compared to these. And that value is 835,700 rounded. The next comparable sheet I have is surrounding area. I used comparables in Chelsea, Corinth, and Tunbridge. These are a lot more comparable. It was a little easier to find properties that had a dwelling with lots of land that were similar to his house, and land. That being said, the mean comp value and the rounded value are much closer to what his assessed value is. And you'll see that the adjustments made on each property
If
are.
I may, in the interest of time, I'm not questioning the value they put on my house. They're not answering the fundamental question I have. Is has they appraised the rest of
You get a
Vershire?
chance to ask
I'm just
them
trying to save time
afterwards.
since we're running long.
You got your time to do all your explanation. They get their time to do all their explanation.
So the comparables, looking at the comparables, you'll see that the rounded value for his property would be $746,600.
You've used all parcels there that are like over 100 acres.
Yes, they are all, one of them is 128 acre parcel, one of them is 100 acres, one of them is 162 acres, and one of them is a land only parcel of 113 acres, which sold for $525,000, which is very similar to what his land is being assessed at.
It is breaking apart the structure and the land separately to come up with that newly assessed value.
My last packet of comparables, I didn't reference in the narrative pit document that I started the whole presentation with. But this is a comparable of the pending sales that are in Vershire. There was 5 of those sales. Out of the 5 sales, 3 of those sales, the value that they're selling for is within $15,000 of what we assessed, proving that we are pretty close to market value for what our assessments are. When you look at these comparables, I have it broken down with the averages of 3 comps and 5 comps. You get different values when you start around doing numbers of averages and stuff. The 3 comps, you'll get an average rounded value of 837,800, and for the 5 comps, you'll get a rounded value of 937,700, and that's comparing it to today's sales. I think that was a quick synopsis of what I've presented. My first document here that I've presented has a little bit more detail of the individual sales, and we can look at all the cost sheets and all of that, and looking at the document.
I'd like to add one more thing, that Nemrick is a respected reappraisal firm. We were thrilled to be able to get them. They are now going to Corinth, West Fairleigh, Bradford. What's the other one doing this? And yeah, they're doing the entire area. They have been the premier reappraisal firm How long has Ed done this for? Like
I don't know,
30
yeah,
years?
Yeah, our senior assessor that builds this.
And he's the one that built the land schedule, and believe me, we had numerous conversations, talking about the sales, and North Road, for example, had some very high-end sales over there in the last couple of years. Their land grades were adjusted to reflect that as well, so there were different things that were calculated in, but they are based on market value. That is the task that the state assigns to us. That was our task, to bring this town back up to market value, to be treated fairly. And again, the sales are the proof of the pudding.
And I guess, just for a little more information on our process, when we go and do a reappraisal, we come in, we do the data entry, we collect the data, look at every house that we can get into, look at every property, at least in an exterior inspection. After that, we then run a sales, so look at all the sales, build the model, and then we then again review all of the properties and apply that sales model to all of the properties in town. So again, speaking for the equity that everybody has been moved to what fair market value was. Something we don't typically do everywhere, but we've done in this town just because Deb was very hands-on and was very involved in the process. We also sat down for 4 or 5 days and looked at every property again with the listers. And she had lots of input as a town-wide person, knowing each individual property a little bit more than what we necessarily would just coming in as an outside. Right. So that's a quick synopsis of how.
I apologize for interrupting earlier. I hope you all realize when he talked about his sales comparables, those are past sales. He already knew the values when he came up with the appraisal, just like he did my house. So as I stated right in the very beginning, every one of the houses that was sold previously, I looked at them over $400,000, were at 90% or higher. It's pretty easy to do when you know what the sales number is. Even I can do that. They haven't answered the fundamental question. That is the rest of Vershire. Vershire doesn't have a lot of sales. How did you appraise all of the other homes? How is it that on my property on Route, and to say I'm not on Route 113 is insulting. I mean, look at the map. 113 goes, not only am I on it, 113 goes through my property. It's not on it, it goes through my property. But as a realtor, I guess Deborah doesn't know where 113 is and my
Okay.
property. So, all right, I'm sorry. But it does get frustrating because she has a tendency to pull up little things and tries to make a brash statement on it. And it gets frustrating listening to it because it's garbage.
So Sean, let's not,
I
get into
apologize.
insulting other people.
I apologize. But I want to make sure you do realize when he gave his sales comps, they're of past sales. I can tie any number to a past sale. So that's pretty easy. They haven't answered the question of, okay, if the rest of the town has been brought up to market value, as they say, why is it that my cost per acre is so dramatically different? And I would ask you all to use common sense as well, that out of 3,000 acres, if 2 acres was rated 2.5, my entire 127 acres is a 2.5, but my woods are so dramatically better than all of the other trees and woods in all of the 3,000 acres. I'm not saying all the woods are as good, but 3,000 acres? That's why I just fundamentally get frustrated when I get these extreme explanations that my woods are so good. Okay, but you're telling me they don't compare to anyone else that's in current use that also has assistance, and you don't have the comps, you know, to say the comps that they match them. Yes, I absolutely agree. If there's a previous sale, I said that in the beginning, that they're going to tie the appraisals to the previous sales. What they haven't demonstrated to me is how they've done the appraisal where they don't have a sale. That's the fundamental question Because if you want fairness and comparability, that's where there should be, what is our cost per acre? And you do that across everyone. Why is it in Stowe? And I'm going to use them now as an example. And Stowe did not use an outside consulting group. They actually used people like Deborah. They used realtors to do the work. And they ended up dramatically increasing, but they did it across the board. And their point was, we know the neighborhoods, we know the areas, we know the homes better than an outside consultant would. And that's how they did the valuations. And the valuations, they truly, Deborah says the state wanted you to bring you up to market. Stowe can definitely say they brought them up to market. I'm not convinced Vershire can truly say that on houses that have not been sold. And I'll leave it at that. Thank you.
We have about
Do
15
we
minutes
have,
left on our time.
We have what?
15,
50 minutes, right?
15, yes.
So do we have questions for the listers?
I do.
Maybe-
So some clarification, didn't, I thought that I heard that all the property wasn't rated at 2.5, that parts of it were at a different rate, is that?
For the current use breakdown, we
For the-
did separate that to give them an exemption. So the exemption was, the exemption is the value on the 12.5 acres that he's paying full value on is substantially lower than it would be if it was all at 2.5. Yes,
So-
we gave a much lower grade on that outcropping on the map that he gave you for that small piece on the opposite side of 113.
Now, I don't mean to interrupt, but just for, maybe Deborah can clarify why I would get confused by that. If the average for my entire property is $4,450 some odd dollars,
Okay,
the value on the 10 point some acres that she's saying I'm getting a great deal is 4,300 some dollars. I'm not sure where the great deal is. I'm missing something.
yes, Jean?
Yeah, I do have a question, and it does relate, does relate back to, when, to Mr. Fernandez's point of the adjacent property having a land grade of 1, or whatever it is,
That was
and then his going to 2.5 with the acreage that abuts it, and I think you said that for a parcel for land, the grade has to be consistent across the entire piece. Did I hear that right?
The bulk land is usually at 1 grade, yes.
When you don't break it out into, because we're not able as an assessor, we're not trained in knowing that this section is a stand of maple trees, this stand is a section of hardwoods, so we can't break them out individually. We have to look at it as a whole. That being said, in the listing, it mentions those things. So we're being told that they're there. So we know that they're there. We don't have to physically figure that out for ourselves. We just saw it was being advertised that way. Going to the current use side of things, current use, you're only, when you're doing the current use stuff, you're only looking at 2 acres as a value of its own, and you're only looking at 10 acres as a value of its own. You're not looking at the entire property and grading that 10 acres compared to the rest of it. You're solely looking at the value of 10 acres.
And
Because
the map,
that 10 acres is, in the current use program, is an excluded section, and so you
Correct.
can grade that differently.
yes.
So my question then still is, how can the adjacent land, again, at 1.0, and Mr. Fernandez is at 2.5? I mean, it seems that even if you were, well, I have my own ideas, but I'm thinking that if his land, you look at the bulk land, and some of it's a 2.5, and some of it's a 1, and some of it's a 1.5, and some of it's a 2, then you would take an average of that number, so to lay across the entire piece instead of just having it all be a 2.5. So I guess I'm just trying to get into the philosophy.
So look, if you're looking,
Land grade.
so let's say you're looking at the adjacent property, and then you look at his property. His property has a driveway, a very nice driveway, all the way to the top of the property. Okay, so it's very accessible land. Now we go to the neighbor, and I don't remember who the neighbor was. And
Tyler Garrow.
I think it was in his documents, but there's not a road all the way to the back end of his property. His property might not be accessible. I get that his property is on Route 113, but it's technically on a private road set back from 113, which is gonna be more desirable than the next door neighbor that has a 300-foot driveway straight up the hill to their house, right off 113.
That one is steep, and it's 100% wooded.
So
Yeah,
please,
yeah.
please, please remember what she just said.
Stop for a second. So just the questions to the listener, Mr. Fernandez, on it, and anytime in any of these hearings, you have a question or a comment, it should be directed to the chair. Not, she's the one who recognized me, and I'm speaking and he's answering my question. So,
No, it's fine.
so I just want to keep a little order and not end up with a
Okay.
mayhem.
We're coming up to,
Okay. I have my answer.
okay,
All right, if I may,
no,
I'm sorry, but I'm still not clear. The 2+, so you're saying that if I understand his acreage at 2+ is for all of his land. So my ends or somebody else's, everybody's is set at one level for the whole
So
thing?
everything starts at a 1, which is at the average, the baseline.
Yeah.
Everybody's at a 1.0.
Yeah.
And then we start looking at the different attributes. Speak to it. Things that were listed in the listing, nice roads, the hardwoods that set off the main road. Maybe there's a little bit of a view, like people feel weary of it because there's a view tax, but it's not necessarily that there's a view tax. But it's your property is going to be more desirable on the market because you have a decent site. So yes, from that 1.0, now all the pluses to the property.
You build it up.
Right. On the other end of it, so in one of my comparables, there's a property off of Beaver Meadow. The house is a 1.5 mile driveway off into Beaver Meadow, and there's a swamp and a pond out in front of it. I mean, it's like a 50-acre pond. But now you're taking 50 acres and you're gonna downgrade a little bit, maybe, if it needs it, and I don't think we did in this case because it's sold for a decent price and stuff, but you're gonna downgrade for things that might take away from that property.
Okay, and then the other one was you're going on the listing, but listings are subjective in the terms of, so everything's going on, how the listing was your basis, so do you use the
The
real estate description, the real estate
we're using
description.
the Zillow.
So you use a Zillow listing or whatever, MLS, whatever it is these days. So that's the basis. Is there any, but that you always want to make your property look better. So,
Well, but I drove it. I
So-
literally drove to the top of the mountain and looked where he wants to build a house.
so basically you use that as the basis, but then you back it up and double check that the real estate listing is actually not bullshit, it's real.
Right, you drive by it, it's
Okay,
beautiful
that
field. You
helps.
drive all the way to the top of the mountain, it's gorgeous up there.
And the
Okay.
parties map as well.
Okay,
Yeah.
thank
Okay.
you.
okay,
May I?
okay, no. No, you had your chance
I didn't
to,
get to,
no,
oh my God, this is so.
well, you had your chance to
I'm gonna
make your
talk
case, and
because
the
she
listers
talked
made
about
the
steep.
case.
If you look at the elevations, you're gonna see.
Mr. Fernandez,
1700, you didn't let
Mr.
me
Fernandez,
talk. I'm
no,
clarifying on her
No.
point.
you had
All
your
right, you don't want to
chance,
get to the answer.
you had your chance to respond,
You don't want to do this.
and we're now on the Board of Civil Authorities questions, all right? So we're now moving to appoint an inspection committee of 3 people. We need to set a date and time for that.
Now, I assume
Um,
you don't need access to the house because
We do need access to
We're only,
the house.
we're only discussing the land.
No, we need access to the house. If we do not have access to the house,
Why do you need access to the house when we're only discussing the
if we
land?
do not have access to the house, listen to me, Mr. Fernandez, if we do not have access to the house, your appeal is null.
But I'm just trying to understand, why do you?
Your
even-
appeal is null if we
You
do
just
not
don't want
have
to answer
access in the
common sense
house.
questions. Okay.
But that is the law. I'm sorry.
No, I know you can be a stickler, but I'm saying, why do you care about going in the house
Because that is what we need to do.
when you're only
We are
evaluating the
required-
land? Okay.
We're required to do that. And if we can't do it, Your appeal is no. So you need to allow us to do it. It's in your
Well, I'm
interest.
gonna have to, you're gonna have to do it with me there, because that's the only
Well,
way to get in the house.
I was gonna say you could have a representative.
Oh, no,
Okay. All right. So then we need to set a date and time and to have an inspection committee.
no, I will recommend that folks bring boots. Because as opposed to just driving up the driveway, we're gonna walk the woods,
Okay.
so that people see how steep it is, et cetera. If it's
Okay,
driving
okay.
up a driveway.
Okay,
doesn't give
Mr.
you
Fernandez,
house.
let's appoint the committee. So could it be Amy, Reva, and Jean? Okay, does that make sense?
Unless someone else
Anybody else
does.
gonna join us? We have to have three, but
We
okay.
have to have
At least
three.
three.
Listers can come if they, if Mr. Fernandez allows, but it sounds like you're not particularly interested. Would you permit them to join us? You do not have to. Okay. So,
I wouldn't mind depending on my availability and date that was scheduled.
okay, so I was suggesting Wednesday, July 31st. Is that all right with you? Okay, so what we need
Maybe
is,
three, like,
so time,
no,
it's not good for Reva, okay?
but if, as long as.
I'm available.
She's available.
There's still the three of us.
Okay, are you available, Amy? Okay, so it would be Amy, Nicole, and Jean.
Something changes.
Okay. Time. Do people have work? Can we do it in the afternoon or do we need to do it in the
I
evening?
can do any time that.
I can schedule around the day.
Okay, how about you? Okay, so how about you?
Early afternoon on is,
Early afternoon? Okay, so what do we say, like, 2?
this is July 31st.
July 31st, yeah. Okay. Then, we need to, set the date and time for a resume hearing.
I'm sorry, was it 2 p.m.?
Sorry,
I missed the time,
I think 2.
2.
Is that
sorry.
okay?
Yeah, no, that's fine, I just want to make sure, thank you.
So date and time to resume the hearing, it can be not more than 30 days. 30 days is August 16th. I thought, let's not push this if we don't have to, all the way to there. So how about, it could be Wednesday, August 7th or Wednesday, August 14th.
I can't do the
Either.
7th, but
You
that-
can't do the 7th.
Either way, they both work for me.
You can do either of those? Is
I'm
it,
not available the 14th.
you're not available the 14th,
She's going on the wall.
but you're going on the, so you need to be there.
That's more important than we-
Right, okay. So,
I could
so,
do earlier, no, we wouldn't be able to do the 12th or 13th because of primaries.
Right.
So you're
Right.
talking a week of primaries.
right, that's right. So how about
It would be, the 7th would work.
the 7th would work? Okay, so time
I'll get to do it at 6.
at 6?
Leave that minutes.
Okay. Okay, I think we're gonna make it. Okay, so I move that the meeting, well, we're not adjourning it. What are we doing?
You are gonna
Recessing.
reconvene.
We're taking a recess.
There you go.
So the meeting will be recessed and we will reconvene on August 7th at 6 p.m. I presume we'll be here. And do remember the rule about ex parte discussion. We will all get copies of the materials so that we can look them
Yes.
over on our,
Oh, can we can't talk to each other either between now and then.
no,
No.
is that it? Okay, Motion to recess?
I make a
Because I'm not
motion
allowed
to
to ask anything.
You had your chance to ask.
Clarifications on some of their comments, I'm not allowed to.
No, you can during the reset when we reconvene.
So we're gonna have a, yeah, it's good to describe that, what that
Hmm?
looks like. Can you describe what that will look like with Mr. Fernandez?
Let me just find the. Well, I've got so many papers here, I'm not sure I can find the right one.
While you're looking at it, I would just ask for all of you to look at the current use and notice they put different descriptions of the words. So where they're saying it's magical grape wood, they talk, some of it's mixed wood, some of it's hardwood. The sugar maple is the smallest thing on here. So.
Okay,
But
so-
I know what he said is
Right.
golden.
So when we reconvene, the inspection committee will present its report. We'll invite final questions from us, final comments from you, final comments for the listers.
Okay, so I move to recess until the August 7th.
I'll second that.
All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Just, Mr. Fernandez, when we do the inspection, so you would show us around, but you're not, it will be ex parte discussion if you, what does it mean? It means sort of out of order.
We wouldn't be able to discuss with you stuff that we would talk about. So you're
Right.
really just there to show us, to say, here's the road, here's the house, here's the woods.
Right, right,
Do not talk about comparables or
right.
that information has to happen at a hearing.
So thank you, everybody.
Thank you, Chairman.
Jean, do you want these back in order to make copies of everything?
I think he kept a copy.
Hmm?
I think he kept a copy of it.
Oh, you should see the other guy. No, I dislocated my shoulder. No, I'm still in the toilet.
Process it.
But I have a previous insight. Yeah, I have a previous injury that involved my whole leg.
I'm gonna go. I just have my.
And then we'll stop it. Yeah.
Question to ask of you.
Mhm.
If I can't be at the last meeting, because I'll be out of town. So do I just, and I can't go to the walk, but I can't put in the comments? I can get to the walk, that's fine. That's not saying you do. If I can get to the walk, can I put in a comment or should I just walk away from it now?
Well, I was gonna say, if you can be at the walk, then you can have input into the report from the inspection committee.
Okay,
But you will not be able to be there for the deliberation.
Yeah, but a lot of work.
right. So I'm thinking I might,
I'm not sure it was worth it.
if I can't be at the deliberation, I don't see why not. All right, let me think about it.
Okay,
But at least now I go to getting creamy legendaries. That's one of the best things coming from snow, going back there. My family knows it's a running joke. Oh, they like, so you're getting a creamy, right? I said, oh, absolutely. It's like when I come down
So,
the Oval Lawn,
do you want
they
these?
know I'm gonna get a creamy on the way home.
do you want these or should I? take them?
I have copies of everything except for.
Well, you can look at what it is.
First.
I apologize for.
I know, you get very excited, I can tell you. You get excited, very excited. See, I'm a lot.
This is where I should have.
Keep on.
Yeah, if
No hugs,
my
no
wife,
hugs.
if my wife was here, she'd be calm. I do get excited, particularly when I get frustrated, when I think something is completely misleading. It's like our politics these days. It's like, oh God, how do you know what's the truth?
Internet media, it's just
Oh, it is scary.
Everything can be out there.
Yeah.
You really have to go like at these two sections back.
It's like, I'm at a point,
Hang on, I'm gonna turn this off.
like CNN used to be, I could
I
trust
mean,
it.
we've gotta
And
have,
now
we
I'm
have to
not
have at
even
least three of
convinced
us
they're